got Lloyd Hickman last year there, so, that old, Piper,
Vagabond.
Vagabond.
Oh, the Vagabond, well, weren't you messing with something before that?
Holy smoke.
Yeah, I had a,
Holy
A
smoke,
warrior.
what?
Oh, this. Why isn't
Fairly
there
new light sport airplane now.
got the action going here?
can't afford nothing new.
Wow.
See who's out there. See who the troublemakers are tonight. There they are. So 1 minute to go.
Your strip, you Steve, your strip,
Hmm?
Steve, strip at your house.
You bet. Just mowed it last night.
I mean, that's, I just,
Yep.
You are south of 250
Yep.
and north of 120.
Yeah, you can see it on 223rd.
Yeah, you gotta show your wind side.
Yeah, it's missing one right at the moment. I got to get another. I think we're close enough. You ready to go, Brian?
I'm ready.
Okay. I got this gavel. I like the gavel here. Okay, we're going to call the August 8th meeting of the Gardner Airport Advisory Board to order. Would you all rise and join me in the Pledge Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everybody for coming tonight. The first item on the agenda, well, I guess we've got us a new board member tonight, here for the first time. And do you have anything to say
Glad to be
about
here.
yourself or anything?
I'm not gonna build any expectations, I'm just glad to be here.
Well, all right. Anyway, we'll get right along with it. The first item is, do we have any public comments?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Randy Mazigian. I own a small Cessna, and I'm very curious as to where we can find an actual roster of who is leasing hangars at the airport, as well as who is on the list and who is on the upgrade list. That should all be public knowledge so that we can avoid any kind of under-the-table shenanigans. I'm very anxious to get my aircraft in a good hangar. So I would like to know what's going on in that regard, and I would like those lists to be made public and available for all of us to see. And the other item is curious about capital improvements. I know we're spending more money than we have buying land to expand the airport. More money than we have buying land to expand the airport. Is there any plan to upgrade some of those derelict hangars that need doors or concrete floors? And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think there is.
Roger Thomas, 300 North Persimmon, Olathe, Kansas. And I agree with what Randy said. I'd like to see the airport upgrade list and the hangar list on the net. I believe in trust but verify. And one of the worst things that I saw in the board prior was that list seemed to be a secret. No city should have things secret. You have a thing on the agenda tonight considering subleasing. One of the things that it has, the original leaseholder is in between planes. Give set time to find plane, or the original leaseholder loses hangar. I started looking for a Cessna 172, and I was advised by my insurance company to not sell my current airplane until I had acquired another airplane. And this had to do with my age. And I'm glad I did, because it took me a year and a half to find my new airplane. So take into consideration some of the lengths of times that people can take to find that new airplane that they want. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Anyone else? I think we're gonna address the subleasing contact, tonight, we're gonna address that.
Right, and I can, if you want me to go ahead and address some of the other comments.
Sure.
I believe we did post the waiting, or the hangar waiting list online, within the last week. And so you should be able to find the hangar waiting list.
I was in kind of a hurry,
Okay.
and I went out to the advisory board, expecting kind of on there.
Yeah, there should be, the Gardner Airport, just a link on our website, and it should be posted there. It has the waiting list, and it may even have the upgrade parts to it. And then as far as the hangars, there should actually be, our GIS guy actually put an aerial of the hangars. And you can actually go on the web and you can click on the hangar, and it'll tell you who leases it.
Who leases it?
Mm-hmm. Who's currently leasing it? Through the, not subleasing, but it, right. That's correct. And if you have trouble, just let me know. Sharon said she put it on there, earlier this week. Okay. And after the meeting, if you wanna come, I can see if I can find it right here for you, so you can kinda see it.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Okay, I kinda did this, but I didn't really, and that's welcome our new board member. And, so we'll go on from there. The consent agenda is, the minutes from June 13th. You know, we didn't have a meeting last month, so we need a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of June 13th. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. That passes unanimously. Okay, we go right into new business discussion items, and the first one is, update on the real property acquisition, the Paulson tract. That would be Brian, I bet.
Correct. Just an update on that as of today. The price was agreed upon and the contract signed. The council did approve the contract. A grant request was submitted to FAA. The grant did include the purchase of the home, engineering, and other associated closing costs. The total cost for the property acquisition was $224,446. The FAA portion, 90%, was $202,001, and the city's 10% match is $22,445. The city did receive a grant application offer from the FAA showing the maximum obligation payable under the offer. Closing did occur on August 1st here in the city, and funds were wired to the title company. The city council authorized the city administrator to execute the grant later on 8/1, and the city administrator and attorney did sign the grant offer, and that was forwarded to the FAA on 8/3, and then we also sent a hard copy. So I think we're going good.
So we did get it all into this year, so
Yeah, there was a, I
we're
think,
not gonna lose any of our grant money.
right, I think there was a risk if we didn't get that in, we'd lose about 61,000.
Yeah, you got the grant money in, David, and you own a house right now.
Right.
Good.
And we have a couple tenants. And so the next part of that will be, the tenant will relocate, there'll be an application for relocation fees, demo, those types of things, and that'll come later in the year, so.
Those demo costs are additional,
Yes.
which case we can still get our 10% out of that as well, right? Or the 90% from the,
Yeah,
Correct.
well, you've already blown past it, so you'll be working on your next.
right.
Right.
Mhm.
So it all went well. It was, I believe we had to have it in by, August 5th, so we did it with 2 days to spare, so.
Well, great. Okay, the next item is the update on the airport layout plan. And I bet that's Brad.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen. Interesting, we're gonna talk about the capital improvement program tonight. I know, Brian said you got this in your packet. Once again, this is preliminary. This is sort of my first stab at, based on your revenues, expenses, projects we've got coming up in the near term, knowing that the paving of the north-south runway, I think it'll be a 1836 by the time we figure the magnetic declination in a few years. And so that one is what we're all working towards. And yes, there have been a lot of land purchases, and there will be continued land purchases until we're ready for that project. So everything is geared toward protecting the runway, or getting land for the runway protection zones. There's only one track left on the south side of the airport that needs to be purchased. Next track that we talked about is talking to the Baker family about getting the 17 acres for the east-west runway and protecting that RPZ, which will also ultimately allow development of the future turf runway that goes on the east-west. The next step would be, the last piece of land acquisition would be getting an easement on the west side of the airport from that property owner to allow for proper clearances for an approach slope, and also for the transitional surface, which is 7-to-1 side slope at the airport. So that's pretty well, the 0 to 5 is pretty well, we've talked through that one, and it's buy land, and then I do have a place where we do take a break, not have a project, so you're gonna need to save up a little bit of match money, because you can see in your first year what I have, the first project, and your phase 2, which is the 6 to 10, is the construct a 3,000 by 60 new north-south runway, and that estimated cost is nearly $3.4 million, and so that would be...
Where are you looking at right now?
Second page.
Yeah, I'm sure, I should have numbered these things, I did not, I
Oh.
apologize. I do have some copies if you all would like to take a look at it.
Yeah, I tried to put it in the PowerPoint, but it was kind of
Yeah,
not clear to read, so.
yeah,
So going back, the Baker property, you've got that moved up to number 1. And you went with the 17 acres.
yes.
Not the
Now, that's
24.
starting 2017, because basically we're saying the projects we're doing this year, or at least the one we just completed, is done, so it's
Yeah.
not part of the future. And so I've got pursuing the Baker property, and then also we have to do the site clearing for the Paulson tract. That will be actually be a 2017 grant.
Uh-huh. That one's already approved though, isn't it?
Well, not the site clearing, just the purchase
Okay.
was approved.
Well, you got a cool $1,052,000 set up there for the Bakers of, has the FAA agreed to go 90% of that?
They have not agreed to go that. They want you, we talked about this last meeting, Dave, about you're probably gonna have to front some costs until your entitlement catches up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing, I thought about doing, was having a no project in there a little bit earlier, so you could bank that money and use that to repay yourselves.
Well, we can only bank, 4 years,
Right.
600,000.
Well, you should have about 400,000, maybe a little less, after we take down the house and
Right.
get the Paulson tract settled. So you're looking at about probably a year and a little bit more than that And then, of course, you're always liable for your 10%. So you'll be needing about, according to this, about 700,000 of federal money, which would be close to 2 years of entitlement you need to recoup. So we might even want to consider having a 2-year cap.
So I guess I haven't quite figured out how you're gonna have to convince them to put in some extra money.
That's what we kind of talked about, and I think, Ray, you talked about maybe doing an interest-free loan or something like that. I mean, the city has provided some financing for you in the past.
Brian
so
was
this
gonna
would be
look
an
into
opportunity.
that. Do you have any update on that?
No, not at this time. I know we did talk about, like I said, the city fronting the cost, and then with that grants, paying it back.
But the other thing we can do too, though, is we can do the 2019 one in 2017 instead. Right.
Yes, you can.
That's
Yeah, you can mix and match any of these around. It's just
Because we
just
have,
looking at the airport situation, that Baker property is really the
we wanna do that first if we can.
key piece. And I suppose there could even be a way we could break that into another tract. I mean, we could go get a 10-acre piece, at least protect the existing runway protection zone, and then maybe in a year or 2 years later, purchase the additional acreage for the future runway protection zone.
But these values you put to here are just guesstimates at this point.
They are guesstimates.
So let me see if I understand how this works then. On the Baker property,
Right.
we would have some money available that they would
Yes.
put in 90% on next
Correct.
year. And the rest of it, we would have to get some kind of a loan somehow from somewhere else.
Correct.
Now, once we get that loan, is that part still eligible for federal?
Yeah, the money that you
participation?
used that on your own to pay for the share would normally be the FAA share is reimbursable.
So
it's
we
gonna-
could, as soon as every year we get 150, we could get,
Yes, you
we
would turn
could
in a
get-
grant application for land and get,
but we'd use all of our, so once we do, if we did Baker and did get the city to loan us whatever, how much would we need? $500,000-600,000?
I don't know if you need quite that much. I was
No, look
thinking
at the
about,
price, I mean,
maybe,
768, like, we got about 450 banked right now, right?
yeah.
Looking
I'm
at the,
thinking around 300, maybe a little bit more, 300.
Yeah.
right, 'cause,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, he just said the 202 was what our responsibility was, or 22,000.
So, we would be stuck on these other projects until we got this paid back.
Yes, you would.
Yeah, so all of those would lengthen out several years.
Right, and so, that's why it might be a good idea to move, I've got in 2021 a no project, so we might wanna move that up, so you have that a year, which would be sort of your bank year. Not do a project and then just wait for another round of federal money to reimburse yourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we did Baker's, wouldn't that just take everything down the chute and move it out a couple of years?
It would.
Yeah, so there would be our,
Yeah, and also part of the next step of the master plan is we're gonna do a financial plan based on the CIP that we sort of work out. And it will get into some of the details of how much you're gonna have to carry over year to year, how much your financing costs could potentially be. I wanted to give you an idea of costs and where we're kinda going with the projects in the next, really next 10 years is the most important that we really zero in on, 11 to 20, that gets a little fuzzy, starting to get a little bit too far out.
well, I guess I think everybody, agrees that the Baker property is probably the one that we need to nab the quickest.
Yeah, that's what we had talked about for at least a couple meetings that we've,
Yeah.
or at
Yeah.
least that was the board's recommendation, and that's where the direction we go.
Right, and that's where we also talked about, you know, getting, negotiating prices for the 17 acres and the 24 acres, right?
Yes.
So with
And-
that, the only thing, with the 17, the only thing we wouldn't have is the ground on the south end that we could put more hangars on.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, we
We'd have
filed
the
that
ones at
back.
the corner
Yeah, we'd have them out to the corner on the north side,
where we
Right.
had a row.
and we'd have our turf runway.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
So you would still have room to build about 45 to 50 hangars. Without the 24 is what we had originally talked about, which gave you some hangars on the south side.
Yeah.
So we took those out and made that tract smaller, reduced it down to 17 acres.
And just in a throw in, I did have a chance to sit down with, one of the Baker family, sisters and her daughters and talk to them at length a couple weeks ago. I had a nice conversation, so starting that process of talking to them, so.
So that's the plan at this point. I might, kind of based on what we talked about, move that 2021 no project up maybe 2 years even, and to give you some time to recoup from the money that you'll have to front on your own. You know, of course, the other thing that's the wild card is our next presidential election, and the airport improvement program actually expired at the end of 2016, so they're operating on continuing resolutions. So, you know, hopefully our next president will show some favoritism towards aviation and want to get a comprehensive bill passed. We'll see, you know.
So we don't know if there's any new money for 2017 and on.
Yeah, that's correct. And we don't even know if there will be an entitlement program, a non-primary entitlement program. I doubt that they would go to that measure and eliminate it, even though they certainly could without any kind of real notice, since there isn't a signed authorization in the law, or signed bill in the law. But it's been kind of just, basically what they've done is taken the last year of the 5-year program that was legislated and just have kept rolling that over. So I don't see any reason why they wouldn't do that, but Congress can do what it chooses to do, so. So that's kind of where we're at with that. If you want to look at the next 6 to 10 years, that's where I have the construct a new runway. That's actually probably a 2-year project by the time you design, you know, construct, grade, compact, you know, reconfigure all these other items. We might even combine new turf and have them both completed in the same project, so those are still things that are out there, but I did want to show them as separate projects, so at least kind of had an idea of how much the new paved runway was going to cost and how much the new turf runway is going to cost. You know, maybe it's something you could think about doing on your own even, or going with the Kansas Department of Aviation grant for building the turf runway and not rely solely on the Federal Aviation Administration. But once again, I'll get into some of those details when we talk about the financial program. I just kind of want to get your comments on these projects and sort of the order that I've kind of programmed them into the process. And after those 2 projects, the new north-south and the new turf east-west, and I've got 2 years of no projects, and then reconstructing your terminal apron as the last project in phase 2.
Yeah, the only comment I have is, the T-hangers. You know, a 10-unit T-hanger isn't really gonna go very far. I don't know why that wouldn't be a minimum
Yeah,
of a 20-unit T-hanger or whatever will fit on that land if we get that 17 acres, whatever we
Right.
can possibly get in there.
Well, one of the things the reason I showed a 10 is, and I'm also showing it with federal participation, because they will fund hangars once all your airfield items are met. at that point, with your terminal area, your terminal apron reconstructed, your new north-south constructed, your new east-west constructed, all your land bought, all your airfield items would be met. So that would be a good opportunity to use some federal money to build a T-hanger. Catch is, of course, they will only allow you to carry so much. I mean, right now, it's be $600,000 towards a new T-hanger. So, you could build a 20-unit, but you still only get to apply $600,000 towards that 20-unit T-hanger. So, and then the other problem is when you do things with federal money, specifications and requirements for, workers' rights, compensation, and all these things really ratchet up your price. So, I don't know, I just thought it might be best just to do, if you're gonna try to use federal money for a T-hanger, it'd be best to do it with a 10-unit. Keep your costs down, and then if you wanna pursue additional 10 or 15 or 16 or 20-unit T-hangers, you can do that on your own.
Yeah, but we could also, like, once we get the 17 acres, we can go ahead and do it ourselves. And
Well,
do-
I'm
do-
gonna say we
do
can,
20 acres once our other bills are paid out.
sure, hangars generally pay for themselves, but they probably wouldn't if we use federal funds.
Well, the only reason, the way they come out ahead is, you're getting, potentially $600,000 offset. I mean,
Yeah, well,
my firm worked on a 10-unit T-hanger out in Ottawa, and it was about $800,000. That was it was green grass, bringing federal, taxiway widths with concrete and all those things, which, beautiful hanger, but it's an expensive hanger. And you throw in all the federal requirements that go with it, it really,
so how much
Right.
how much did they pay of that, at $800,000?
well, Ottawa only had about 400,000 banked, so it was about a 50-50 deal is how that one ended up.
Yeah. What'd they have to rent them for, do you know?
Yeah, they're around 200.
Mhm.
But they filled up right away.
Hmm.
So that's just, I guess, just a note to yourselves that Construct T-hanger is using federal money. Because you can do it, if you do it on your own, I think you save about 25% of the cost, when you don't
Yeah.
have any federal dollars. with
Yeah, that'd be the only thing, I'd
requirement.
put that in an option way ahead of even doing the runway. If we do it on our own,
Well, that's an interesting thought,
Once we
Ray,
have-
is once you have
the land.
the land, then, the concern about the runway is, while it's important, it's a big project, you wanna do it, it can move, it can slide. So, but, all along, we've been working towards new runway.
Right, but at the same time, we got a massive, hangar waiting list.
Right,
Right, and, we'll have the land then to construct the hangars, and
true.
once we finish paying off, like, the current set that we're paying off, we'll have to look to see when that will be.
Mhm.
I mean, there's, like Dave said, they pretty much pay for themselves over 20 years.
Thing of
That's
it is,
true.
we gotta have the money up front, so the city has normally loaned us the money, and then we've paid them off, so
Mhm.
it just depends on how agreeable they are to do that kind of stuff.
Look at me.
Have you floated that idea to him yet, Brian? I mean, I know you've hit him with a lot of stuff with his land costs, so you probably didn't wanna throw a whole
And
bunch
see,
of...
another question is, how much money are we gonna have? We need to keep a little money every year to do maintenance work,
Right.
We're doing some asphalt work, I think, this year, aren't we, Brian?
Correct.
And we had money saved for that, for a lot of like 30,000 last year. And over the years, we've done some improvements on the T-hangers. I don't know what's next there. Something was mentioned tonight about them, and
Mhm.
we need to figure out what we've got there that we need to be doing also, and be doing some of that every year. So we've got to keep a little money in our account to do that.
Well, do you want me to take a look at maybe, pushing that runway project back? 'Cause that's the one that's sort of, that's the elephant in the room is that big project, and it's gonna cost you all, upwards of $350,000, which puts the kibosh on any other improvements until you can get caught up with all that.
Right, and you had mentioned that there's, you know, we can go beyond our allocation like we have now of $150,000 when we go to do the runway, right? But we're still responsible for the 10%.
That is correct. And this is also assuming that the FAA will, at this point, realize that, you know, this is a very, and it is a good project. You compete well, you've got over 100 based aircraft. Discretionary funding is actually key to getting this piece completed.
I believe these last hangars get paid off in, I want to say 2022. That's a good, item.
That up.
And of course, that opens up another income for us too.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's something I'll try to, when I start playing with some of the numbers of financial plan, and I can give you all the programming and how we might, where it all, but that's how we're gonna try to figure out
Yeah.
where these things fit. But this is just sort of like I said, first blush, first shot at capital improvement, knowing that you're gonna need over the 20-year period about, what do I have?
What was our payment? What's our yearly payment?
Now?
Yeah.
Yeah, about $800,000 at this,
Yeah.
in
Our yearly
2016
payment.
dollars to do the whole plan that I've got here.
Mhm.
No, but what's our yearly payment?
About 80,000 when you look at the interest in the spring and the principal and the interest in the fall. I think it falls in around 80,000.
Right,
So
so
that
if they're
kinda
paid
gets
off
back to
in
your point where
22,
you-
then what I'm getting at is if you delay it 2 years, that's $180,000, or $160,000 that you would
Right.
be able to bank for every year that you push things out, that, you know, we don't start
Mhm.
another bank of hangars that we have to pay on, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of a juggling exercise that we're gonna go through the next couple meetings after this, where you want these projects to fall, and your ability to pay, and then the city's ability to help finance some of these projects as well.
I think a lot boils down to what I think the Baker property is what I think the city wants us to go for, and as we look at it, I think that's the critical one to get also.
Mhm.
And then it boils down to how they structure the rest of the payment, how far we have to move things out and what we go to next.
Yep, you're exactly right, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So anyway, that's all I have for you tonight, but we will pick this up next month, and I'll have a little bit better idea of how you'll pay for all these things, and
I assume
Meeting with
you're working with Brian on this, and you'll know exactly when we pay out our hangars, and we'll know
Yeah.
that.
I got a note to get with the finance department, find out exactly when we're done.
Yeah. So, sounds good to me.
all right,
Anybody got any questions?
Thanks, Brad.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Oh, yeah. How are they doing? Have you got a whole colony out there?
I think they're doing fine, actually.
Have you caught any?
I saw one dead out on the road and I haven't seen any since.
Someone's been trying to dig into my hangar. Dig a hole up.
We did have a trapper come out and try a variety of enticements. I think fried chicken was the number one thing we tried. And, but they obviously didn't like the fried chicken that we used, so.
Huh. Well.
They like extra crispy or?
I think one thing about, and it was brought up in the public comments, is at this point, we should probably figure out what our projects need to be out there as far as upkeep on the airport and any improvements we need, so we can funnel those into our yearly funding also.
Right, one thing we do have in the budget for 2016 if you look at in the next section on the financials, and jumping ahead, but on the second page of the expenditures, it's capital outlay. This is building / structure improvements, and there's 50,000 in there. And that was to work on, depending on the price, either 4 or 5 new doors. Didn't know if it'd be 10,000 or about 12,500. We haven't bid them yet, but we wanted to look at possibly getting some additional doors out there.
Where do we still need good bifold doors?
On the number ones through,
Oh, the
the first one with the old sliding doors, right? Those are the only ones we haven't done,
Yeah.
right? Everything else is done. So there really isn't that many that don't have the bifolds.
Mm-hmm.
What is there, 6? There's 6 there?
There's 10.
1,
10.
10?
Yeah. The 10 old ones, the
The very first ones. One where you park your tractor in the middle of the room, right? There's 5 to the one side and 5 to the other side of your tractor, right? 5, yeah, 'cause it's like 3 and 2, right?
Yeah. Each one of them is 5 bayer. I think the metal ones would probably handle bifold, but with those old wooden ones do that?
Well, we already took care of the power, right, Jim? We already got power in there to handle the doors, so that's already done.
Yeah, they just rewired that towards the end of last year.
Right.
So,
I see, I mean, the doors are self-supporting.
I suppose. They have to be. They have to have the structure there to.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. I propose to do the 5 on the north side, right? 'Cause they're the worst ones to get open in the wintertime.
That's 5's quite a bit of money. I forget what the last.
We did 4 at a time last time.
4 was about $50,000, I think, close to.
Yeah, we were, when last time I talked to, I think it was to Dale about it, he said somewhere between 10 and 12,500.
Door?
And so, yeah, per door.
Yeah, okay.
There's nothing says we can't do a 2 or 3 or maybe even 4.
Right, like I said, that is in the budget for this year, so.
Okay.
Jim, you got anything on the fuel?
Well, we're gonna be ordering some for the end of this month. 191 ounce.
Did you drop the price without getting a new load on the 100 low lead? I thought it went down to like 380, right?
Well, we got a load for that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, that must have been too long ago.
Well, Jim and I have talked about it, but we're gonna buy some 91. We wanna get it before they start the winter
Yep.
mix. And I think you mentioned it was September the 1st? Yeah.
Yeah, we talked to Winger Oil,
Yeah.
and they basically said they wouldn't do anything until September 15th, but they recommended we order by September 1st just to make sure.
Yep.
So,
I think we need to figure out what we need over the winter and that, and make sure we have it. So. You gonna do some fertilizing?
I got the, soil test in this morning, get them back in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already talked about overseeding up there on 1735 and then some on 321. Down the center where we had traffic. And we kinda anticipate a little more traffic with the spike school coming on hopefully, so. First step is talk about it, second step is to get the soil test, see what they need, and get the product and material. And then go from there. Hopefully, everything will work out sometime, last part of September for the overseeding.
Yeah.
we did talk to was it Rick Miller with, K-State Extension, and he's sending us a form to fill out for getting the cedar.
Good.
And as a city, it doesn't cost us anything.
Great. Does that mean you're gonna close the runway? Okay. Let's see, anything else out there? So are we gonna be looking for a bid on some hangar doors here, Brian, do this fall?
Yeah, I gotta do it.
Okay.
Sidetracked on a paving project out,
Has our asphalt work been done at all? It hasn't been done either.
no, I've been working with, Jeff, is it McConnell? The guys you worked with last year, who I thought was no longer with the company, but he still is with the company. Yeah, so.
Okay, good. Okay, financials.
Well, I gave you both the, end of June and end of July financials. And so there's 2 pages. The first page of the expenditures are, personnel costs and then contractual services. And it kinda shows you year-to-date, so you can see the difference between June and July. Second page of expenditure shows the actual capital improvements, which includes land acquisition, building and structures, which we talked about for the doors, and then airport taxiway improvements, which are, doing some of the paving work out there, crack sealing, and, relocating the threshold out there.
What are the chances of using that budget up, though? $160,000?
Right. And I'd have to go back and look at the city just on August 1 adopted the 2017 budget, which includes a revision to the 2016 budget, and I'll need to make sure that these numbers accurately reflect that.
Yeah, I don't know what that 160,000 actually means.
Right.
I can, we know that we got a good 50,000 every year we can pay for doing improvements for,
Right.
hangar doors, asphalting, and then we have to make our payment, which is 60 or 70, and then it's according to how many other things we have during the year that we have to fix.
I think when we were doing the initial budget for 2016, it was somewhat, the airport was obviously new to the city.
Mm-hmm.
I think we threw in, it might have been 100,000 for runway and taxiway improvements, and,
Yeah.
it displaced the threshold by, and that's gonna be 60,000. I mean, there was some guesstimates in there, so.
What did that actually cost for the threshold?
We've actually got, we had to get 3 quotes. One person did not quote us, and then we had 2 bids to do the work. We've got to drill down a little bit on one of them, was actually 22,000. But they included a whole lot of crack sealing and some other work with it, and restriping the whole runway, and
Oh,
so we're trying to tighten that down a little bit.
now, I guess that'd be a $5,000 deal myself.
No, no, it's gonna be at least 10.
We need McNett back, he'd just paint it and we'd have it done.
Wouldn't tell anybody, just there it was.
Yeah, that's all they're gonna do. Okay. So when it gets right down to the end of this thing, how much money do we have? That's in there somewhere, isn't it?
Well, the 3rd page and probably the 6th page are the revenues.
Uh-huh.
And so we originally budgeted, we'd have 786,000 in revenue, and that included, both the transfers over from the other accounts, and then, hangar rent, those types of things, fuel sales.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see right now we're at 37% as of the end of June. And let's see.
7 months.
End of July, we're at 40%. We're tracking good on hangar rents. Into June, we were at 54%, of what we estimated. Fuel cells are down. And so we had estimated about 120,000 in fuel cells. We're only 20% of that.
So you estimated how much income for the year?
I think in the original budget, we said we'd have about 786,000.
Where's that gonna come from?
Well, there's a bunch in the grants that are there. Federal grants are included in that.
Federal grants are
Yeah.
in there, 'cause you know, the airport's probably 2.25.
Yeah, actually, what we anticipated from the airport was 320,000, 196 in hangar rentals, 120 in fuel sales, based on some of the history there.
Okay.
The fuel prices are down, and we just haven't sold that much fuel, so.
See, you were a little aggressive there. Do you have a bank account?
Yeah, I mean, it's the city's budget, the way they do the budgeting. It shows you, this is a airport fund, so that shows you the revenue coming in, and that shows you basically what we got in there to work with. I know you want to see, like you had before, you had 2 bank accounts, and here's what you started the month with, and here's what you ended, and this is what you got to work with, but the city budgeting process is different than that, so.
So they say we got all of that to work with until we run out of money on it, then, huh?
Pretty much.
You okay?
They're gonna give us the money.
You think so?
Buy lottery tickets.
I mean, and again, I'll go back to council was, when this whole process started, I mean, they definitely want the airport to, continue. And they expressed an interest to be a little more, aggressive in some things, and that should include land acquisition. I mean, we gotta protect that airport, so I would hope they'd be supportive of it.
Well, I hope so, yeah. Okay. Anything else on financials? I guess not. So, we'll go on to June events.
Basically got some, just a few pictures. The first page is the, World War I event that was held in, I believe the 17th and 18th. The breakfast looked pretty good at the shelter house, but nobody invited me in when I was out taking the pictures, so I don't know if it was good or not.
Well, I think I'd complain.
Yeah.
I think you just did.
Yeah. Note to anybody listening about that next meeting. Second event was held Father's Day weekend. It just includes. After Father's Day? Okay. One was the 17th, 18th, I guess the 17th was, or 18th was Father's Day. Okay.
Asher looks fine.
And that's really what I had, the first weekend when we had the World War I replica fly in. After that, I actually went over to Lee Summit. Lee Summit had their open house that weekend at their airport. And so I went over to check out how they did their open house. It was interesting. I thought it would be much better attended. I think we had more people at the events here than Lee Summit had at their big open house.
Huh.
So they did not have, they may have had one plane out there for people to look at. They had a police helicopter, they had one of the local TV networks helicopters, and they actually had a company out there that you could go for helicopter rides in. And other than a bouncy house and some face painting and things like that, that was it.
Yeah, I flew in there, and, yeah, it didn't seem to be well attended, but they were flying young eagles. They flew a lot of young eagles that day.
Okay. That's actually all I have on that.
Okay. Your other business.
It's a fun one here.
It's the elephant on the table.
Okay.
I mean, it's been a topic of discussion, for quite a while. And background, when the city took this over, we actually recommended that all subleasing be eliminated as of December 31st, 2015. Council said, no, that really wasn't fair to the people that were out there. So we have it written in there that it would end December 31st of 2016. The council has gotten back with us to see if there's a way to possibly allow, some version of subleasing to continue. We've had some discussion here at the board. What I would like to do tonight is discuss the options that are out there. I would like for the board to come to a consensus on what they would like to see as we move forward. And then I'd like to publicize that to all the hangar tenants and then come back at the September meeting for action, which we would then take to city council. I want all the hangar tenants to be able to have input on this. Some of the things staff want to consider is recommending that the options would be subleasing not be permitted after December 31st. Or recommend that the council could delay the end of subleasing while a final plan is worked out. This could be a 6 or 12 month delay. And I said this is basically kicking the can down the road. But it would give some assurance to current subleasees that they wouldn't have to immediately leave. We could recommend that the subleasing be permitted without any conditions, kind of how it is right now. Or we could recommend that subleasing be permitted with conditions. Those conditions could include subleasing limited to a maximum time frame per hangar. 1 year is an example. We had a gentleman tonight that talked about maybe a little bit longer because it takes a while to get an airplane. Subleasing permitted, but the airport manager would utilize the waiting list to determine who that subleasee would be. Subleasing permitted, and the original hangar leaseholder would submit a name to the airport manager for consideration. And there may be other options out there. So to get it started, I came up with a recommendation. So we get something talked about tonight. I said subleasing would be permitted with the following limitations. Subleasing hangars would only be for a maximum of 1 year. Leaseholder may submit a name for consideration by the airport manager. And if the leaseholder does not submit a name, or if the airport manager finds the name submitted unacceptable, the waiting list would be used. And so I kind of wanted to have you guys discuss that option, or if there's something else you'd like to see.
I think before we get into this, we need to figure out whatever we decide to do, how are we going to enforce it?
Right.
I mean, the county over here they say no subleasing, but this happens all the time. The reason we never allowed it was because we didn't know how we were going to enforce it. If we have rules and regulations and we can't enforce them, well, then we don't have any rules anyway.
Right.
So that'd be my first question to the airport manager would be, how are we going to enforce this? And I think that to some degree that tells us what we can do.
I mean, it's going to take more work on my part. But I mean, we understand that it happens out there. We really want to make some progress on the waiting list. So I don't really want it to go unregulated. I'd like to be able to provide some controls. And as far as how we're going to enforce it, don't know yet. So, honest answer.
I know that there is some subleased hangars out there that there's no way that the actual leasee will ever come back.
Right.
And his buddy wanted it. And so, I know there's some of that. I know some of them don't have really airplanes in them. How do these Smileys, does they ever get their hangars cleaned out? Yeah.
I couldn't tell you on all of it.
Is Smiley still leasing several hangars?
I don't have the list in front of me.
Yeah, see, they should be, I know, you know, he passed away, and I think they were trying to clean things out, and there were several hangars that were just full of his airplane stuff.
Dorothy Smiley called me and wanted to know who was taking care of opening up hangars, like Dale did.
Mhm.
I say, ask that for Phyllis. She says, I don't have anybody in for hangar. So it makes me think that there's some stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, I think going forward, another good point that we can do is to, when we come in here to discuss what changes have happened from the previous month in terms of the hangar list, like if some came up and somebody, you know, took a new hangar or somebody got pulled off the upgrade list, just to be open and with everything.
Sure.
I know my friend got called when we were at Oshkosh for one of the old open hangars that, what was it, the Cessna 140 was in. What's his name? Cecil. He got called for that one came open.
Right. We've been calling on hangar 4, like we have someone now that will go in hangar 4. And we're also requiring people, when they do take a hangar, to meet with Jim to kind of go through the hangar to make sure they understand how everything operates. And we had a number 43? 43 just came open as of August 1st, and so we're working on that one.
Which one is that? Zelda.
But I mean, this is something, I mean, right now, as of December 31st, subleasing is over. And so, I mean, as of now, if we were to find someone that's subleasing, we kick everybody, kick them out. So I think it's legitimate to have, obviously, someone's trying to buy a plane, they don't want to give up their hangar. In a year and a half, or is 2 years the appropriate amount of time, or 1 year? I've never bought an airplane, so I don't know.
I'd say 2 years. That'd be my vote.
So, now I guess the first question, I haven't answered Dave's question, how it's going to be enforced, because I'm not sure. But if we do allow it, are you okay in general with allowing it with some limitations?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the consensus on the board?
I believe probably we should have some more control. I just don't know how to enforce them. I hate us to make a bunch of rules and then say, well, nobody's doing anything anyway.
To me, the issue is that people who have hangars and airplanes out there, the airplanes really need to be kept in a hangar in this part of the country. So, people that are on the list, you know, it's not fair to them necessarily, but do they have an airplane somewhere that's tied down out in the field, or are they gonna buy an airplane once they get a hangar, you know, and this process starts? So my personal feeling is that the preference ought to go to people who have airplanes who are out there or in the hangar, rather than saying, okay, now you have to get your airplane out of the hangar, will we give this to somebody else who doesn't have an airplane yet? You know, I mean, that's...
I don't agree with that. I mean, they knew that going in, right? They knew going in that they were
Well, they
subleasing
knew
a
going in
hangar,
because
but
of the way the system worked there. But I'm just offering that as a, if we wanna be fair about it. The fact that they have an airplane that's inside, you know, throw them out for somebody who...
We weren't actually fair before either, because
Well, I
the
know.
guys that were on the list were shorts, you know, not moved up because people were subleasing in place.
Oh, I agree, yeah, I agree. I'm just saying...
Has the list been audited, I mean, for people that's gone?
Not for quite a few years.
I mean, I did, you know, I updated it, you know, as it went on, you know, as one came open, you might do the first 10 till you fill one, but you certainly don't go through the whole list, because you just get people excited thinking they're, you know, their names come up on the list, and you're just calling them
We're
for...
landing some things,
And one other thing I might add on that is that there are some hangars out there with have airplanes in them that aren't really airplanes or ever again gonna fly or ever again gonna even be dug out of the mud. You know, you have to take that into consideration. Some of the Smiley...
Well, should have an operational airplane.
That's something, the non-active airplanes and hangars, I think we
Yeah,
should
that's definitely one.
do a little,
Well, I think we have to have that in the minimum standards.
or
Yeah,
airplane.
and then I think we put a time frame on it
Right.
too, right?
That's correct.
What that's gonna take though is, you know,
approved and it's an airworthy aircraft. So, yeah, it can be enforced, but it's just gonna take time.
It's messy, very messy.
Yeah.
And where are you going to get, so, and after that matter, where is clear? To me, part of that is, when you see it really clear, part of that is when it had its last meeting, when it had its last time. Do that, you're gonna have a certified aircraft mechanic for it.
Well, if it's a home build, give me 5 minutes and a pin. We'll solve that problem.
These are questions I need to know, I mean, as we go through this process, so.
I was just throwing mine out for part of the process.
We have a question from back there, where,
Yes, in the subleasing recommendations here, I don't see any place on there consideration of the upgrade list. How are we building the upgrade list waiting?
Well, the waiting list actually has everybody's name's on there, and if they even have a hangar, they're on there. But it has columns for if you wanna upgrade.
Yeah, I did a whole flow chart of how you select the new person for that open hangar. You know how you go down through the upgrade list first, looking for an appropriate candidate, and if you don't find anybody on the upgrade list, then it goes to the new hangar list to call people. So that was already provided to the city when they took over control.
How are you gonna handle it? I've seen this before. Person gives up the hangar, first thing you know, hey, person that has a hangar, hey, I'm moving in here. And they're already in that hangar before someone else, gets in there.
I don't understand.
I've seen it before, Ray, go ahead, Berkeley, what are you saying? They trade hangars when it gets, like that.
Yeah, well, that's something, city, the lease, the lease is based on a particular unit number.
Right.
I don't think there's a way to do that now legally,
Right.
and so,
I mean, yeah, I heard that too, that, we'll be notified of one hangar, and there's been 10 that have changed hands, I mean,
but there is a way to do that if you're on the upgrade list.
correct.
The main thing is even if, I've seen them where 2 or 3 people have moved, but in the end, there is still one hangar opening up.
Right.
But it has to be done.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
for example, is Dale's now,
City.
right? Dale's is gonna free up when that airplane's finally out there, and I'm the first on the upgrade list, so I'm gonna be moving from the north side to the south side. That's gonna free up the north side one, and somebody else will wanna upgrade to a new hangar, and then so on and so forth down the line.
Are you on the first
I'm first on the upgrade list.
First on the upgrade list?
Yep. Been on it for about 7 years.
Okay.
So,
We have to keep this fair.
I'm sure everybody out there will be nice to me and not do any of these things.
What kind of a dog?
But I mean, Brian, do you think it's something we can enact for all new leases going forward, that they, don't allow subleasing, or if we do it in some shape or form, like the 2-year limit and that you use the hangar list to find the new subleasee?
Right. Well, and that's the question, do we wanna use the hangar waiting list for the subleasee, or do we wanna, people have pride in their hangars. And, one of the questions I got was, I don't know the next person on the waiting list, but, this guy, and it's only for a short period of time, a year or two while I find a plane. We put a time limitation on, they want someone in their hangar that's gonna take care of their hangar.
Yeah, but in reality, it's a city-owned hangar.
I understand that,
Right.
that's one of the.
I think what more comes down to is some guys that are subleasing hangars, they wanna leave a bunch of their crap in the hangar, right? So they still have some use of that storage space while somebody else sticks an airplane in there. And to me, if you're gonna sublease a hangar, get everything out of there. But if it's short term, yeah, it's a little different. The guy might choose to leave his tools there and leave everything else in there, so. But he's not gonna do that if he doesn't trust the next guy who's gonna be in there short term.
What's the board think?
I have another, maybe just something just to throw out. So whatever we come up for rules and regulations for subleasing, are we gonna allow any, grandfathering of people that are already subleasing, or does it affect everybody that's subleasing?
I think, from my position, this was gonna take effect, January 1 of 2017. And that would give people, if we say 2 years, or 1 year, whatever time frame it is, to get a hanger and do whatever. I mean, I think we gotta do this across the board. I'm not sure how I can grandfather.
The only thing I see wrong with that, Brian, is the fact that we know there's a ton of people subleasing, and if you did that tally of all those people subleasing, there's gonna be a massive 40 people just moving around, because somebody's on the waiting list, right, but he's waiting for the right hanger to come up, and so he's subleasing one while he's in another one, and there's a bunch of that stuff going on. So, those people would be sitting there looking for a hanger. In reality, they might already have one after this happens.
Brian, at one time, the citizens or consider at least doing acting up a hanger with nothing in it. People that, the one on the board, that they were thinking, and agreed to say, hey, we will work. And they would go out and open up the hanger, get the, phone number on their phone, and see who owns that airplane, to see if it's either a lease or what. And that's the city doing that.
That's right, we were gonna do that about 2 years ago, I think, before we kinda got started with everything else that was happening at the time, so. Dale was sick, for one, and,
So basically, we look at the lease and see what aircraft is supposed to be in that hangar.
yeah,
Yeah, like what matches what's on the lease, right?
Right.
see who's really in there.
My biggest deal is that right now, it all ends December 31st. And so, I mean, we need to come with something, and I put in an option, we can kick the can down the road, and as long as we're working on it, we can ask council to, let's delay the end of, subleasing for 6 to 12 months until we, come up with a better plan.
I think we need to stay on it, but I don't think we're gonna I think next month is gonna be a sporty meeting. We're gonna have a lot of people in here,
Right.
and, I don't know if we can make a decision in next month. It may go on till October.
Well, and people need answers. I mean, people who've got airplanes in a hangar that,
Yeah.
am I gonna get kicked out? So we owe it to them to, say we're working on it, we're gonna do a 6-month reprieve or 1-year reprieve, so there's some certainty that you can have that hangar for a while, or if we don't do something in September, the closer we get to December 31st, it's gonna be a problem.
Well, I'm thinking it might take one more month.
So
But I can see coming up with something that would say, like you've got on the screen here, subleasing will be for a maximum of so many years, and that'll be from the end of, starting 2017.
Is that renewable at the end of the year?
Well, our leases are a month to month
Yeah.
on there, so, I mean, if we pull the trigger before January 1 of 17, then, whatever the council agrees to.
Mm-hmm. We definitely need to reduce it substantially, I think, and at the same time, we need to find the hangars that are really not being used as hangars and just storage, and They need to have a flyable airplane in them.
Well, can we get you to go through the list? I mean, anybody who's legally subleasing should have already filled out paperwork with the city, right? So if we get a tally of which hangars those subleases are in, and then, you know, we can, you can have them print out the new hangar list, and, we can go through it and see how many of those people might already be on that list. 'Cause, you know, when the name comes up and you take them out, if that hangar comes free, they might be the one that gets it because they're already on the list.
That'd be too easy.
Yeah, it would.
And understand, you know, when we have an airport board meeting the second Monday of the month, it won't go to council till the following month, just the way the meetings lay out. And so if we make a if we were to make a determination September 12th, our next meeting, this is what we want, that doesn't go to council till the first meeting in October. And you're less than 3 months before the end of the year. So if we push that to October, then we're not gonna make a decision till November. You know, it's just one of those things that people need some sort of certainty on what to do.
Well, can we take one step forward and say we won't allow subleasing going forward for new leases,
Whatever you guys would like.
right? That way we have time to deal with the ones that are currently leasing, like you say, grandfathered in, they're not, you know,
Well, I
it's
don't
not.
even have a lease. I just share the airplane with, Lloyd, so.
Yeah, but somebody has a lease, either you or Lloyd.
Lloyd has a lease, yeah.
And you share the airplane with Lloyd, right?
Yeah.
So, you're good.
So, is there a consensus that I would come back and say, new leases, all new leases, to be clear, no subleasing would be allowed going forward?
No subleasing going forward, is that what you?
I wouldn't say new, I would just say that 2-year thing, right? Do the 2-year thing on this new stuff going forward, right?
Okay.
So subleasing is only allowed for a 2-year maximum period.
With approval.
Yeah, with approval.
Waiting list or submitting a name?
Sorry?
2 years, who,
Oh, 2 years, you have 2 years, you can sublease it for 2 years if it's your like a new contract. So if
Mhm.
somebody gets and signs the lease, and they move in there, and they lose their airplane for whatever reason, they have 2 years that they can sublease it for. But that doesn't have any bearing on the people that are currently subleasing.
That's going back to grandfathering.
Yeah, that's kinda what we need to decide, right?
yeah, I said that, you know, submit a name, for them to submit a name for consideration by the airport manager. If they don't submit a name, we go off the waiting list, but it's whatever you guys would. I just had got some feedback over the last month, again, that, you know, I'm in between planes, and I know it's a city's hangar, but it's, you know, it's theirs, and they would like to be able to control who went in there, so.
I can see to a certain extent, but it doesn't help the waiting list any, that's the only thing. So, like, I mean, do you want them to submit a name that's on the hangar list? That might be one way to do it, but then it might go against the first guy being on the list,
Right.
and he says, oh, I don't like that guy, I want you to give it to the 5th guy down. All right? 'Cause it certainly would be nice for people who are on the list to get a chance. Some of them probably wouldn't even take it either, you know, because if it's short term, they might want it long term, right?
But whoever accepts this is gonna be accepting it for 2 years, that's only.
Well, up to 2 years, I mean,
Yeah.
the person could buy a plane and kick them out.
Exactly.
I'm talking about the subleaser. If you're allowed some, you know,
Yeah, they can have it for a maximum of 2, you know, they could go in
2
for a
years,
maximum
so
of
it-
2 years,
you
but
know.
they might, that's a risk on their part.
Right.
yeah. But maybe it's better than having nothing, and you've got 2 years to deal with it, so.
My preference was just go by the list. It's so much simpler. It's the only way to be fair. You know, it
Yeah.
just means you can't leave anything in your hangar. You know, the original leasee or leaser.
So you're saying 2 years, don't have the, submit a name for consideration for any new ones, it's just go down the list and find out if anybody wants to sublease.
that's like, you know, we're having a couple hangars open right now, so when those people sign that lease, that, I mean, we'll take this to council, obviously, but that would be the thought process for anybody signing a new lease. But then the people that have current leases, I mean,
Leave them alone till we get the rest of it hammered out.
Current leases and subleasing? Is that what you?
I mean, we can go through and we can match up, you know, end numbers. I mean, we can open all the hangars, we can kinda come back with how many we currently have subleasing, and we can go through and look at how many are using them for storage versus actually have a flyable
I
aircraft.
think the main thing to see what's really storage and just airplane parts and just not really used for what we'd like it used for.
Yep.
And then if we could entertain the possibility of of your first bullet, a 2-year maximum, maybe not even have the second bullet, and just say anybody,
Right,
you know, that
We'll just say
wants to if a leasee wants to have somebody sublease, the airport manager would check and see anybody on the waiting list would want it, go down the list.
yeah, I mean, if the guy doesn't wanna do it, he has the option to just keep paying the rent and leave it empty. Right, that's his prerogative.
But we wanna have flyable airplanes in the hangars.
Mm-hmm. That'll discourage people from keeping it and sell, if you know, if you don't have an airplane.
I'll put all this together and come back with some more information at the September meeting.
Okay, and the main thing I'd like to see is how you gonna enforce it?
One more time.
PD doesn't give me a gun for some reason.
Tasers.
Yeah. Anybody from the audience have anything?
I bet we have a bigger audience next month, huh?
I think the next meeting's September 12th. I think I feel a cold coming on. Right. Yeah, and then it's well, right now, subleasing ends December 31st. Nobody can do it.
Period.
Period. It's done. But there's been the council has talked to people, and, there's been a lot of interest in allowing some subleasing in some form. And so after December 31st, so that's kind of why we're talking about it. That was actually quite honestly the same discussion I had on fireworks in town. You couldn't sell fireworks and you couldn't shoot fireworks in Gardner, and everybody was doing it anyway. And so the city decided, let's take advantage of it, let's allow people to sell fireworks and use them on certain days of the season, so, 'cause nothing was getting enforced, so. I got some thinking to do.
Okay. Good.
A couple other things, I included in your packet the July issue of the Kansas Aviation newsletter. I've also included the second, Gardner Municipal Airport newsletter. This month we featured Jim, newsletter.
Oh, there it is on the back. All right.
So I don't know if you all got it, I put some out at the airport, we got some out back. And the other thing, we just were notified last week of, the 2018 Kansas Airport Improvement Program. And applications are due to KDOT, by September 30th. And I included a one-page on your desk, looks like this. Kinda got 4 categories for, project types. System preservation projects, modernization projects, equipment and facilities project, and design/planning projects. And so the city does have a grants writer, and so we're gonna start to look at that. And this was new to us, so. but that actually gives you kind of what they're looking for in the project, so. So, we will have a meeting, September 12th, so if you guys, this isn't due till September 30th, so if you have a chance to look through it and got some ideas, let us know.
So is that money that we might have access to, or is that something you gotta do a matching stuff on that too?
Well, it actually says maximum state participation in any project is about 800,000. And I do not know off the top of my head if we have to, Brad, you know?
It's a 90/10 match. One of the catches was engineering fees are not, all that stuff. The fund money is 90% of the cost, but that cost.
They do talk about projects with full depth reconstruction. Existing runways are maximum of 1.2 million. New runways are 1.6 million. So. But like I said, we just got that, so I thought I'd give you guys a copy.
Well, they have some maintenance and repair. Reckon our hangar doors would be a repair,
That's
Right.
Maintenance.
or asphalting would
Yep.
be maintenance.
Yep, that would all be part of this. And as Brad said, that's a 90/10, so.
Better than 100%.
Got a grant once, grant from KDOT.
Yeah.
The runway, I think, 2 cycles back.
Back then it was, they changed their match, back then it was 50/50,
Yeah, we figured out when it was done that we could have paid for it the way we wanted to do it, been cheaper than, or 50% of the way we had to do it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but 90/10, that would change.
90/10 would change it quite a bit.
You know, the thing tonight, Joel is here this evening from Eagle Flight. He's been working on the flight school, so.
Great.
How's that coming along?
A little slower than planned, but it's coming. The biggest thing is, fighting right now is looking for airplanes. Got a couple airplanes, I'm running into the same situation, hangar issues. Not having a hangar, and flight slot actually 172, that's why I'm doing that. Looking for any options available for that.
Did you keep that open T hangar?
Yep, so have that.
Like,
I think,
Problem is they're moving from, they would either move from, I got one at Executive and two at Century that are all in a closed hangar. Move out to Gardner. They want it in. But we're still looking, still moving, and, the remodel project is taking a little bit longer. I'm still working full-time over at East Century, looking forward to getting out to Gardner full-time as quick as possible, but having to bounce back and forth is taking a lot of time. Taking a little bit more than I expected, but looking forward to getting full-time out there. Get a lot of response from signs being up, and, a lot of phone calls. I know we have a lot of interest. Once we have everything in place, I think we'll start moving forward pretty quick. You know anybody that has a 172 or a good training airplane that, we want to put on lease back, let me know.
you bet. Do we have anything else? What are you looking for there?
just if, you got anything you wanna talk about, or?
I guess I don't. Does anybody else?
Blaine, we thank you for volunteering to be on the board.
I thought I was getting paid.
Checks in the mail.
That comes later, you get your dollar. Used to be they paid us $1.
And I don't know if you all heard, Chad will be resigning, so.
Moving out of the area, you said?
That's what the email said, he was gonna be moving out of the area.
Wow, it's just constant change up here, isn't it?
I know we did have a lot, I mean, I'm not involved in the process of reviewing applications or that, but I think we had a number of very qualified candidates that applied, when Blaine was selected. So hopefully there'll be more people interested. That's all I
Very
got.
good. I guess I need a, motion to adjourn. Okay, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Whack it.
Whack it.
Same sign.
Let me shut the video off and I'll see what I can find.
I sent it to the city, but, I have what, I have what I sent the city.
You'll eventually get one of these chairs.
Privilege your email.
I don't want cattle in the pond.